We have a special guest joining us live from Washington, Mr. Puneet Ahluwalia, who is a Republican leader and a political and a business consultant, now joins us on WION. Mr. Ahluwalia, thank you so much for joining us on our show. To begin with, we are seeing protests on the streets of U.S. now after multiple reactions came in from world leaders, many of them treading cautiously on U.S.'s bold attack on Iran. How would you say is U.S. reacting? Do you feel that the citizens, the lawmakers of the United States are backing President Trump at this point in time?
You have to see President Trump's foreign policy has been very decisive and very clear. And it's a policy which has got a very deep thought into it, where he has the support of his coalition partners with the Saudi countries, Saudi government, along with the Gulf nations, and of course the Israelis, who are the main stakeholders of the Middle East. They are with him, and within the U.S., the leadership entirely on the Republican side has been supportive of President Trump. And I have to say it's a little different than what President Obama did, was basically pandering to the mullahs and at the same time giving billions of dollars to the Iranian to basically buy peace. But President Trump has been very clear. He has avenged American soldiers who were killed, maimed. In fact, 1/6 of every casualty of U.S. soldiers in Iraq was thanks to the gentleman who was assassinated or was taken down by our leader and our forces in Iraq day before yesterday. So I feel there's retribution, and I feel a lot of families, of American families who lost their family members, feel that President Trump and our leadership did a right job in taking General Soleimani out.
But does the president have a bipartisan support in this particular case? Do you feel that Republicans, for one at least, are backing Trump on this matter?
Well, the Republicans are supporting, but you have to realize that in our country, he was chosen as an elected president of the United States. So he is speaking and doing things on behalf of the American public and American people to keep our nation safe, and at the same time, all our coalition partners safe in the region. So the President Trump has the mandate, he has the support, and this is an important issue. He has been very deliberate. There was an opportunity to take General Soleimani out about a month and a half ago. They pushed back. President Bush didn't even do anything in that regard, and President Obama was more like pandering to the Iranians, which emboldened them, and they felt, and General Soleimani felt very confident and comfortable coming into Iraq and meeting with the militia actor like Abu Mahdi and going in the same car with him. So that told the emboldenedness, how emboldened he was, how the Iranians felt. And if you also recall, the Khomeini sent a tweet to President Trump. He was kind of pushing him and poking him. What can you really do if we create havoc for you in Iraq? And especially what they did by storming our embassy. So, this is the wrong guy to trifle with. And I guess they overplayed their hand, and they have a dead general on their hand. And I blame the mullahs for escalating this conflict. We have been coming from a very defensive point, but at the same time, it's a very significant move, and it is very decisive on behalf of my president, or our President Trump.
Right. Mr. Ahluwalia, you repeatedly mentioned how Soleimani was responsible for death of numerous American soldiers and American citizens, and that is the reason why such a decisive action was taken by the president. But if we can draw parallels here, back in 2003, when the U.S. claimed that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, Iraq had nuclear weapons, and Iraq was attacked, and later it was found that Iraq did not really possess any weapons of mass destruction. It was found by the UN. So how does the world believe that when U.S. says that they are trying to avoid future attacks and U.S. targets were on the radar for Soleimani, how does the world believe that U.S. did indeed have evidence of this eventual attack that was to come?
Well, I'll quote General Soleimani's own words when he said to kind of taunted David Petraeus that all the foreign policy or all actions which are done from Afghanistan all the way down to Syria are basically done by him. So he kind of claimed his notoriety. All the militia movement, including Hezbollah, were funded by him. In fact, they were focusing on destabilizing the region. So when a person has taunted and flaunted his role in all the activities. And apparently, as he grew in influence and power, not only he was somewhat a comparable head of the commanding force, envoy of the sovereign power of Iran, at the same time more like the head of the CIA equivalent of Iran, which is so he had a notorious influence, and hence the reason his activities were notorious, and today he paid for it. So all these blood which have been drawn not only of American soldiers but of our allies and friends, that includes people from Saudi Arabia and Yemen and from Syria. All these regions have been impacted, including the Iranians, not to miss that. So his hand was everywhere. So when he flaunts and taunts his foreign policy and his injubilation that what you can do, and I'm the one who calls the shot, he brought it on himself.
Right, but does that justify the president tweeting out that U.S. will attack 52 establishments of Iran, and many of them which are culturally significant to the people of Iran? We're not talking about military establishments anymore. We're traversing into culture. Is that okay? Would that be justified?
Well, I'll tell you, the Iranian people are fed up of this regime, and that's the reason on time and again they have come out and there's unrest. They have spoken against this regime, and they have been brutally crushed. Furthermore, all the millions and trillions of dollars they got from the United States, none of that money trickled down to the Iranian people. So the Iranian people are fed up of these mullahs. Iran is a great nation. The people are great. I have some good Iranian friends and love Iranian food, but at the same time, great history, great culture. But they have been now held hostage by these mullahs and the rogue regime, which has made their life miserable. So I guess when President Trump says, you attack any of our assets or any of our allies, and that any president would do, in fact, Prime Minister Modi would protect his own people, and that's what my president is doing, that you will attack. And by the way, you have to realize this was a defensive attack on our side. The mullahs escalated it. General Soleimani, through his actions for the last 40 years of fighting the United States and our allies in the region, brought it on himself. And we will respond, and decisively.
And wouldn't it be too simplistic to say that the people of Iran are fed up with the mullahs controlling their lives? We have seen massive demonstrations ever since Soleimani was killed. We have seen people take to the streets, people crying on the streets. Today, a red flag has been hoisted on top of an iconic mosque minaret as well, which is a signal that the death will be avenged. Will there be any effort on part of the U.S. for de-escalation? We are seeing a flurry of tweets from the president, but no effort for de-escalation when the world leaders are begging for both sides to stop.
Well, if you have to realize that when Osama bin Laden was killed, there was all the jihadists, all the bad actors came out together and beat their chest. Well, this is the same moment in a different uniform. So I feel there are a lot of people, we saw people at the Tahrir Square kind of being jubilant, and most importantly, Iraqis may not come out and say it openly because there are bad actors who are supported by Iran in that region are kind of holding them hostage. But we also know that Iraq doesn't want any influence of Iran in their sovereign country and their land and their governance. So I believe there are people who are very elated in that. In fact, Shia folks are very happy in some cases. But what you see is the jihadi element, and this is again being narrated to make Israel the bad guy. Please understand this. There's a strong, robust partnership the United States have with Saudi Arabia, with the Gulf nation, and the Israeli the Israeli country, and the Israelis. So this is a collective move, and at the same time, the threat of Iran has been faced by not only the United States, by many other international countries. So I don't know what you are getting your information. I would see the numbers of dead. They will speak for themselves.
Right. So does that mean that there will be efforts at de-escalation?
Well, again, President Trump said, we are not looking for war. We really are looking for peace, and we have tried. But at the same time, again, I say, they felt emboldened. They felt that this president, unlike the previous presidents we've had, is not going to do anything. They pushed his hand, and the president has been very deliberate on taking a decisive action. But at some point, the intel, what I understand, is that they were looking to take out some mass demonstration and attack our assets. Our embassy was, everybody was asked to move out yesterday, which was Friday. Everybody's on their flight back home. And the reason is that we were concerned about American lives and our coalition partners' lives. So President Trump had to do what decisively we had to do. That's a strategy which is in play. His foreign policy is very decisive.
Right, and so American diplomats and outside of Iraq have also been asked to leave in the region?
No, not only in the region, specifically in Iraq. And I guess we're all on guard. We all understand the potential threats and the concerns we have for our members of State Department and Foreign Services and various agencies. Our prayers are to them. And most importantly, if these bad actors do decide to take matters in their hand, and I guess the militia movement, which is the proxy war, which General Soleimani was known to lead and fuel and fund, are going to take some decisive action on their own. But I can tell you, as we have done in the past, we'll find you, we'll hunt you down and shoot you like a dog.
Right. Well, thank you, Mr. Ahluwalia, for joining us and sharing your views and expertise with us. Well, there you have it. U.S. diplomats have been asked to exit from Iraq. We know that it was on Friday, the very day when news of Soleimani's killing came to light, that U.S. diplomats and citizens were asked to leave Iraq immediately by road or by air, and tensions peaking in the region even as we speak. Major General Qasem Soleimani was a legend of sorts in West Asia, and he was a general who preferred the war front as opposed to being cocooned inside a military headquarters as head of the most elite unit in Iran's Revolutionary Guards, the Quds Force, which is tasked to carry out unconventional warfare and intelligence activities. He reported directly to the supreme leader of Iran and was in charge of all major operations outside as well. He was also known as the Ghost, as he travelled all over West Asia covertly. He defied death many times but could not do so in Baghdad, where the Americans blew up his convoy near the airport. He was killed early morning on Friday in a US-led drone attack. Well, here is a complete report on this assassination's impact follows. Soleimani's death will have a ripple effect in West Asia. It is going to enrage the Iranian government. Iran's economy is already reeling under pressure from US sanctions, and anti-American sentiment is at an all-time high.
We would love to be able to negotiate a deal if they want.
The killing of Soleimani may encourage Iran to speed up its ambitious nuclear program. His death may result in large-scale protests in Iran, Lebanon, Syria and other Shia-dominated areas. The killing will also escalate tensions in the Strait of Hormuz, which plays an important role in the supply of crude oil to the world. The Strait of Hormuz accounted for passage of 21 million barrels of crude oil in 2018. This roughly stands at 21% of world consumption of crude. In 2019, Iran shot down an American drone which ratcheted up the tension in the area. Soleimani also played an important role in reorganizing Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's broken defense forces. He was the brain behind organizing the Hezbollah, Shia militants from Central Asia and Russian forces in Syria against the US-led Syrian Democratic Front, which had taken initial lead against the Assad government. Soleimani also played a crucial role in Lebanon and Iraq, from where he continued to hit at American interests. Soleimani was an Iraq-Iran war veteran. It was Soleimani who pushed Houthis against the Sunnis and the Saudi-backed regime of Yemen. From Yemen, he organized attacks against Riyadh too. Soleimani worked against US interests but was not a recognized terrorist. He was a serving military officer of the government of Iran, and that too a very senior one. His killing will be taken personally by the Iranian government, and American assets are more likely to be attacked in West Asia. The fact that US officially claimed his death will also change the rules of the game in West Asia. It will push Iran to take more aggressive steps against America. The killing will not make Iran sober, it will enrage its military establishment further. The development might make Saudi Arabia and Sunni-led states happy, but Soleimani was the face of Shia politics in West Asia. Though Soleimani was killed on foreign soil and in the wake of the attack on US's embassy in Baghdad, it is not going to cut much ice with the Iranian government. Soleimani's death will bring Russians, Iranians and Syrian government closer. Soleimani played an important role in the Russian-led pushback of US interests, and his skills were invaluable, but his death would inevitably bring anti-Saudi Arabian interests together with Russian help. Bureau Report, WION.